The Mayflower Compact was nothing more than a bunch of white men sticking together to ensure that they would get a return on their investment. They introduced sexism, racism, and a class system to these shores. And guess what? They did not even land at the sacred shrine down the hill called Plymouth Rock, a monument to racism and oppression which we are proud to say we buried not once but twice in 1970 and again in 1995. Upon arriving on the Outer Cape, the Pilgrims opened my ancestors' grave and took funeral objects. They also took as much of our corn and bean supplies as they could carry. Massasoit, the great sachem of the Wampanoag, knew of this, yet he and his people welcomed the settlers, saving them from extinction, little knowing how many Wampanoag and other natives would be enslaved or killed by their guns or dead from their diseases. Later, from the very beautiful harbor that you can see behind you, the pious Pilgrims sold my ancestors as slaves for 220 shillings each. And in today's money, that would be around 33 US dollars. Some would ask what have we gained by observing National Day of Mourning since 1970. The very fact that you are here is our perhaps greatest gain. People from the four directions, having seen through the Pilgrim myth, join us every year in the struggle to destroy that mythology. I noticed that there was even suddenly a couple of movies that claim to be setting the record straight. I'm not here to give a movie review, but I am glad to see that efforts are being made now to be more historically accurate. However, it is still the story as seen through the eyes of the white man. Sadly, the conditions which prevailed in Indian country at the first national mourning in 1970 still prevail today. In 1970, we demanded an end to the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and it is still a demand today. Native nations do not need federal oversight to govern ourselves. Mashpee, Aquila, and other native nations should not need legal permission from the state or feds to open any kind of business, including casinos, on our own ancestral land. Now, those who started Day of Mourning spoke
Which casino he's talking about? Mohegan.
Not only native people, but many people from the four directions face racism daily and are mired in the deepest poverty. Every winter, millions of people have to make a choice between eating and eating, and individuals and families are homeless in many towns and cities. As we did in 1970, we mourn the loss of millions of our ancestors and the devastation of our beautiful land and water and air. We pray for our people who have died during this past year and during the past 523 years since Columbus showed up. I hope that you will join me in grieving too for our sisters and brothers in all countries, human beings who are referred to by this government as collateral damage. Keep in mind that for centuries, people throughout the Americas have been the collateral damage of the European invasion. And I also hope you will join me in grieving too for the immense suffering of our sisters and brothers in so many countries, all human beings who suffer and face acts of terror on a daily basis. And remember too the hundreds of millions of people who are hungry today, no matter where they live. Now, we condemn all acts of violence and terrorism perpetrated by all governments and organizations against innocent civilians worldwide. Since the invasion of Columbus and the rest of the Europeans, native people have virtually been non-stop victims of terrorism. The slaughter of the Pequots at Mystic in 1637, the U.S. military massacres of peaceful native people at Wounded Knee and Sand Creek and so many other places. The very foundations of this powerful and wealthy country are the theft of our land and the slaughter of native people, and the kidnapping and enslavement of our African sisters and brothers. We remind the modern-day pilgrims that their families were often refugees, and rebuke them for their current refusal to help others who are refugees. Yes. Today on liberated territory, we will correct some history and do so in a country that continues to glorify butchers like Columbus, in a country that glorifies slave-owning presidents such as Washington and Jefferson and even carved their faces into the sacred Black Hills of the Lakota. On our program will be only Native speakers. This is one day when we speak for ourselves without non-Native people, the so-called experts, intervening to interpret and speak for us. That first day of mourning in 1970 was a powerful demonstration of Native unity. Today is a power demonstration of not only Native unity, but the unity of all people who want to speak truth to power, people who want the truth to be told and want to see an end to the oppressive system brought to these shores by the Pilgrim invaders. Our very presence frees this land from the lies of the history books, the profiteers, and the myth makers. We will remember and honor all of our ancestors who went before us. We will remember in particular all of our sisters and brothers, including Leonard Peltier and Mumia Abu-Jamal and Oscar Lopez Rivera, who are still caged in the iron house. In 1970, very few people would have given any thought to the fact that the indigenous people of this hemisphere do not look upon the to give thanks. To many thousands today, many thousands stand with us in spirit as we commemorate our 46th National Day of Mourning. Think about it. 46 times we've gathered on this hill. In the spirit of Crazy Horse, in the spirit of Metacom, in the spirit of Geronimo, we are not vanishing, we are not conquered, we are strong as ever. Hope.